fees are what we utilize to run the operations. It pays for the administration of the voucher program. In addition, there were cuts to the capital fund, which funds capital projects for our public housing developments throughout the county of Los Angeles. During that same time, there were also cuts to the Community Development Block Grant Program of about 17%, and also to the Home Program, which funds programs such as first-time home buyers. Then in November of last year, through the Transportation and HUD Appropriations Bill, there were further reductions to all of these programs. To begin with, on the Section 8 side, there's an additional loss of 7% for the administrative fees, which amounts to about $1.5 million. The capital fund was cut once again by another 6%. The Community Development Block Grant Program lost another 22%. And then the Home Program was decimated with a 44% cut. To make matters worse, in December, on December 29th, and I know you're going to have this on your agenda for on redevelopment, there was the dissolution of redevelopment agencies in the state of California. And we are also the county's redevelopment arm. So that was basically 100% loss for us. Also, due to the supercommittee's failure to reach consensus on the funding cuts, there may be an additional 9% reduction across the board for 2013. But we're not sure exactly how that will impact our particular program as of yet. In terms of total percentage cuts, on the Section 8 side, it's 25% overall when we look to pre-2011 funding. For the capital fund, it's 25% there as well, 40% to the CDBG fund. Home lost a total of 55%, and of course redevelopment is 100% loss. So we've had to make quite a few adjustments in the last several months in preparation for these funding cuts. In terms of good news, if there is any, there have been some special appropriations for some special purpose vouchers. And I'm not sure if you're aware of the Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing, commonly known as VASH, but this is a program meant specifically for homeless veterans to provide a tenant-based voucher for homeless veterans, and there have been special appropriations since 2009 up until 2011, and we expect that in April there will be another appropriations for that program as well. Through that special funding, we have received an allocation of approximately 600 vouchers for the county of Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles has also received their allocation as well. Up to this point, we have been able to house 427 formerly homeless veterans, 20 of whom live here in the city of Lancaster. So that particular program has made a deep impact, but when you look at what's going on the voucher side, it pales in comparison in terms of the need that we have out there for these particular programs. Now, interestingly enough, the HAP funding, or the housing assistance payments, the level that's paid for the subsidy, has remained pretty constant or has a slight increase. So while they're cutting the administrative fees, they are keeping the funding level to pay the subsidy. We have, however, reached a critical point where if there continues to be this type of funding cuts to our administrative fees, we will no longer be able to support the number of vouchers that are allocated to our housing authority. In reference to the impact, there were staff reductions back in April, and as a result of the latest cuts in November, there will be further staff reductions at all levels throughout our entire organization, including the housing authority. Those staff reductions will be announced next month to all of our staff. In addition, there has also been a merging of divisions, trying to get economies of scale. Some divisions have been decimated to the point where they can't stand on their own and are now merging with others. We continue to have a greater reliance on technology and are trying to squeeze every last bit of efficiencies that we can from that. But it's also going to have an impact to our clients. Because of the funding cuts and because we've had to let go of staff, we're also going to have to limit our customer service hours. Our case managers right now have the responsibility for recertifying every family once a year. In addition, they also handle all of the walk-in traffic from the lobby for anyone that has a question in reference to their particular issue. And they also have to answer phone inquiries. So we're going to have to reduce those hours to allow the fewer amount of case managers that we have to actually have blocks of uninterrupted time to handle their workload. We still seek some regulatory relief. There hasn't been any up to this point. There have been several bills that have been introduced over the past several years, the latest of which is now the Affordable Housing and Self-Sufficiency Improvement Act. And this is a reiteration of other reform bills that have gone before Congress that have not really caught any steam. But this particular bill aims to provide some sort of regulatory relief, such as creating fungibility between the capital fund and the operating subsidy. Currently, we have restrictions on how we can utilize those funds. So this reform bill will allow us to basically commingle those funds for the needs of the Public Housing Agency. Also, there is some talk of reducing some of the requirements to administer the voucher program. And for example, there are talks about not requiring annual recertification for seniors. And this can be done if you are a move-to-work agency. This particular reform bill will designate more housing authorities as moving-to-work agencies. And what that does is it gives housing authorities a flexibility to modify their program to do things such as not recertifying specific households where you have a single source of income, perhaps a senior on Social Security. Does it really make sense to have to recertify that person every single year? It gives you the flexibility to carve out some of those administrative burdens and perhaps be able to handle a larger caseload. At this point, we're still responsible for all of the same regulations related to lease-up, re-exams, inspections, tenant moves, and portability. So needless to say, we're struggling with this. And I can tell you back on January 31st, the day before the deadline on redevelopment and decisions to be made on staffing, we were getting calls from various cities inquiring as to whether or not we were interested in taking over their housing assets and also perhaps even dissolving their housing authority and having us take over that particular function. And as will probably be reported later on, there's still a lot of unknowns in reference to that particular piece of legislation. A lot of municipalities are struggling with what this really means for the tax increment funds. So with all of this, we continue to plan strategically to try to make sure that we uphold our responsibility in administering the program as best we can. But as I stated before, we're at a critical point right now where any further reductions in admin fees will really call into question our ability to administer that number of vouchers. And the same is holding true particularly for smaller housing authorities that have little staff and little flexibility in how they're going to manage the program. Let's see what we have. That's it in reference to the funding. I mean, there really isn't any good news out there at this point. But this is a reality that we're facing.
Do any commissioners have any questions? I've got a couple for you. Let's see, one is that whole issue of little workload relief. I know 5 years ago when I left Housing Authority in San Diego, HUD was talking about giving some workload relief, such as what you just described, maybe a biannual recertification rather than annual. Are you getting any help from NARO and the other housing, national housing agencies in pressing HUD on issue that you're describing as a 25% reduction in administrative fees to run the program, yet the same administrative level of requirements on staff?
Yes, we are very actively involved with both NARO and CLAFA, which is the Council of Large Public Housing Authorities, and they have been very active on the Hill to work with HUD on this particular Reform Act. In the past, it hasn't gotten any traction, and quite frankly, this is an election year. I'm not sure how much political will there is to actually get this bill through. But it's not going to be through lack of effort on the housing authorities, and there are many housing authorities that are clamoring for this regulatory relief because the Section 8 program in particular, as well as public housing, the administrative requirements are pretty high.
Right.
So, just to give you an example on, we've got 22,000 vouchers. That equates to having to do about 45,000 inspections a year. You have to have a minimum amount of staffing to do that.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that's kind of related to my next question. You indicated the amount of funding for HAP payments would remain the same or slightly increase. Will that be a sufficient amount of funds? Do you expect to fund the current level of 22,000 authorized units?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
It is sufficient funds. Now, interestingly enough, you used to have the ability actually to tap into your reserves to cover some of your administrative costs. That ability is being taken away now since HUD is now offsetting your funding by the amount of reserves that you have available. So those housing authorities that were prudent and socked away money for a rainy day are now being penalized for that and basically getting their funding reduced by that amount. But on the HAP side, it's a balancing act. You have to constantly monitor your lease-up rate to make sure you have the funding available to cover those vouchers. Right now, we're right at that level.
Okay. And then you also mentioned the number of inspections. There's also the number of re-exams that need to be performed per year. When you reduce, and I'm guessing here, when you say there's a 25% reduction in admin fee, I know you're not prepared today to identify the specific cuts, but would each remaining staff member after your cuts be experiencing a 25% increase in workload?
It's not quite that simple, but there certainly will be an increase in workload, but we've been able to implement in the last 2 years quite a few new technology initiatives that have lightened that burden. For example, we have our inspectors that now have tablet devices that in real time provide feedback back to the landlord in reference to those inspection results. All of that was done by paper 3 years ago. We are now implementing, in fact, next week, a new green routing system that will help to schedule all of these inspections in the most efficient way possible. Right now, that scheduling is done by individuals. So this will be automated to get the most optimum routes to try to squeeze out more inspections per day.
Okay.
So we're doing things like that to help, but certainly you can't avoid increasing the workload to certain individuals.
Exactly. And the question kind of culminates, I think, in whether your expectation in the next year is, given what you've described here, is the ability of staff there to provide for the number of inspections, for the number of re-exams of tenants' income through the next 12-month period, given a basically 25% reduction in admin fee. Do you expect there to be problems, or would you expect that you will have the capacity to deal with those under confines of fewer admin dollars?
It is our expectation that we're going to have the resource available to do that.
I see.
But it's not going to be without a challenge. Right now, in some of these special programs, as I mentioned before, VASH, we're spending a lot of overtime trying to get that fully leased up because we don't get paid on any voucher until that unit is leased. So you have to put your efforts where you can maximize your revenues. It's not going to be without a challenge, but we fully expect to be able to manage the amount of vouchers that we have right now. Okay. But I don't think we can absorb any further cuts.
See.
That will then, we'll have to go back and take a look at what we're doing. Now, there are some things that we do to be prudent, such as we have a team of quality control case managers that really check all of the work to make sure that we're determining the rents correctly and make sure that everything is being done appropriately. That's probably the first part that's going to suffer, as you need to have that expertise to actually manage the caseload. So you will be able to process the reexaminations. You may not be able to have enough staff to really do 100% quality control. You may have to reduce that.
Okay.
But there are certain things that we just can't let go. I mean, you have to do a reexamination timely, and you have to do your inspection timely. those things are a given. So that's where we're placing our emphasis.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
What happens in a worst-case scenario? You get additional admin cuts. Are you not able to fulfill some of the vouchers then? I mean,
There comes
Yeah.
a point in time where you're not going to be able to maintain your lease-up rate to that level. It is really labor-intensive to, for example, our success rate right now is 40% in terms of the people that we pull from the waiting list to those that actually get housed. So you're burning 60% of those will never come to fruition. That's a lot of work that's being done in the background, and you're not getting paid for any of that until you actually get leased up. So that's the first part that's probably going to suffer. And as your lease-up rate decreases, so do your admin fees, and it's a downward spiral. So you have to really plan strategically to make sure that that doesn't happen. And so it's going to mean really a shifting of staff, as some people that were dedicated to certain functions will now have to be, depending on where the need is, shifted around.
Okay, and you did indicate no relief measures are in sight at this point in time?
Well, there is one, the one that I mentioned
Oh.
earlier, and it's actually today was the markup on the Hill, in the House. But from everything that I've heard, I'm not sure how much support there is to get this through. We've been at this point several times over the last 3 or 4 years with bills being introduced only to just die in committee. So we're not sure whether or not this one has the legs to get carried through.
Okay.
But it is being introduced, it's being marked up today.
Definitely a serious matter, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, listen, we definitely appreciate you coming up here, particularly on a rainy day, to give us the news about this. It confirms a lot of what we've been seeing in the HUD website, and I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a report from the Director of Housing for the City of Lancaster regarding the impact of the dissolution of the City of Lancaster Redevelopment Agency. We have Elizabeth Brubaker, who's going to...
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, there is no redevelopment agency anymore. It's over, it's done. There aren't any redevelopment agencies in the state of California. So, what took place is the legislation that's in place is very vague, it's very difficult to work with, and it's creating a lot of confusion for the county, the state, as well as the cities throughout the state of California. What the city has decided to do is they have created a successor agency that will have an oversight board for those projects and items that would have been under economic development. They have chosen to create but to transfer the housing assets to the Lancaster Housing Authority. The difficulty with both is there is no income that comes in to continue either one of those operations. But for economic development, the sole purpose of the successor agency and the oversight board is to sell all of the assets that were purchased with economic funds, and then when it's over, that's over, it no longer exists. So economic development will be handled by the City of Lancaster, and that will continue as it is today. The city will be very creative in how it utilizes its general funds and how it sells the properties to generate sales tax so that the city continues to prosper economically. Housing will continue to sell its assets and continue with what it was doing in terms of bringing the neighborhoods back, and then at some point we'll decide what's important for the community regarding housing or not, and then go from there. So it's going to require right now for staff to work with the county and with the state to go through the legislation and work it out and attempt to follow the laws, and then work on being creative in how we continue economic development and housing in the city of Lancaster. And that's kind of where we're at. It's a lot of work. And
Question, in regards to the houses that the redevelopment agency has in the neighborhoods that they're selling to first-time home buyers, is that correct?
we are not selling them to first-time home buyers. We are selling them to any buyers that meet the income requirements of not exceeding 120% of LA County median.
Is that going to continue that stipulation?
What we're doing right now is staff is renewing all of the exclusive agency right to sell listings that we had with all of the agents. So when Governor Brown signed the bill, AB 26 and AB 27, we could no longer enter into any agreements. So all the listings went away because we couldn't enter into it, but we told all of the agents and the brokers that we would honor the agreement that we had made, that they would represent us on the sale of those homes when we knew what would happen with the legislation. So right now, all of the agents that had listings, staff is calling and they're re-entering listings with the Housing Authority. And then they will sell them, and they will sell them to people whose income does not exceed 120% of LA County median. There's going to be issues with the title, and we will work through that, because the Lancaster redevelopment, since redevelopment agencies no longer exist, they can't grant deed or quit claim the property. But the Housing Authority will approve the sale of that home. So the title companies are saying that they will honor and understand that issue. We'll see how that happens. We've got an offer in now, so I guess we're going to get to be the first one in the state of California to work through the title issue and just see how that all works out.
But the requirement on the income will not change?
No, but in the future it will. It will change. Housing authorities can only sell to those whose income does not exceed 80% of LA County median. So when we go to do the selling of our land and we do the disposition and development agreements with the developers to build the housing, those houses can be only sold to those whose income does not exceed 80% of LA County median.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So what we're going to try and do, I think, is see what other funding sources we can use to maybe assist in a down payment program, if that's going to work. We're going to talk to lenders right now and see how we can get those whose income is at that level into housing, and what we might have to do to assist in getting them in there, because that's the whole thing, is getting approved for the loan. So it's going to be interesting.
Very.
It's always challenging. I've been doing this this will be my 22nd year, and the laws change and things change, and you just kind of learn to go to the right, to the left, and just kind of work it all out. And right now it's a little bit difficult because probably every redevelopment agency that's no longer a redevelopment agency is interpreting the law differently. So you've got a lot of attorneys meeting, and the bill was not written by anybody who was in redevelopment, and they don't understand the complexities of the bonding. They didn't understand the complexities of how we leverage things, and so it's creating a lot of issues, and especially for those who are bondholders. So it'll work out, though. It'll truly all work out.
Do you think the redevelopment agencies will ever return?
No, I don't. I think that I don't think redevelopment's going to return. I don't think the use of what we call tax increment will return. I think that each city is going to have to be creative and learn to do business in a different manner. And it's going to be what's important to that particular community, how you spend the funds that you have. And so it's going to change things a lot. I think what a lot of people didn't understand is how great redevelopment was and all the things that it did, and that you had a lot of older commercial, older retail, older industrial, and those redevelopment funds are what made the auto malls, which rehabbed downtowns, and brought things back again to what people think is acceptable in terms of aesthetics, in terms of vitality and economic development. And it's going to create a lot of issues in a lot of communities as they age. So something's going to happen. You know, and it's the people that make it happen, and it's the business people that make it happen. So I think you have to get through this shift. You have to see where things are going. I think we kind of have to get on another economic uptrend, and then see how everything shifts in different communities in terms of the growth. So it won't be redevelopment. It'll be something else, but it will be something that brings vitality and economic development to your community. That's how we all operate. It's a capitalistic United States. It's capitalistic California. We'll just have to see how it all floats out.
Tim, would it be possible that could invite Ms. Brubaker back in about 3 months to get an update on how everything's going? Because I'm certainly curious.
Yes, it will be very interesting. We're all kind of curious as we kind of navigate every day through all the different little nuances and issues. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to come back.
I'm sure the title companies are going to love this.
Yeah, they are.
It's going to be 90-day escrows is what's going to happen. It's going to be 90-day escrows. It won't get cleared up that easily.
No. It's like the short sales this time became the longest I've ever seen them in terms of closing. So, and then a lot of people have retired, so you have a lot of new people in title, escrow. You don't have that experience there anymore, so there's going to be a lot of issues.
You mentioned that the successor agency, the Housing Authority, will have all the assets turned over.
It already happened. The Housing Authority doesn't have a successor agency. The Housing Authority is on its own.
I was referring that it sounded as though the Lancaster Housing Authority was a successor
No.
to the redevelopment agency?
No. They separated it. We made a decision to have a successor agency for economic development with an oversight board pursuant to the legislation. If we didn't have a successor agency, then the county, the county had to decide whether they were going to be the successor agency. And if the county decided they did not want to be the successor agency, then it went to the state. And Jerry Brown already for 4 different cities has already appointed boards to be that successor agency for those cities. So then you have the successor agency, and then you have an oversight board that has to approve everything the successor agency does, and then whatever the oversight board approves, it goes to the state. They have X amount of days to approve. That's to liquidate all of the economic development assets. Now, what the city council elected to do was to transfer all of the housing assets to the Lancaster Housing Authority. Its whole being is to provide affordable housing, preserve affordable housing within the city of Lancaster. So it has no successor agency. It has no oversight board. The Lancaster Housing Authority is a politic and corporate body.
Okay. So to follow that logic and help me here, when these assets do undergo sale, the sale proceeds will go where?
Sale proceeds will go to the county, who then sends back a certain amount of taxes that the city of Lancaster is entitled to. And then I believe, well, how it works is off the top, they take their admin fee, the county does. Then the second is that the legislation said that they will honor the bond obligations
Right.
and make sure that the reserves stay whole, so they pay the bond obligations and the reserve, and then whatever is left over will go, then they do the pass-throughs. We have pass-through agreements. And then after the pass-through agreements, the taxes go to the fire, the school, so that the state's not backfilling anymore.
I see. Okay.
So we don't get any more taxes we don't get anything out of this.
I
This
see.
is a loss.
Well, was there much of a profit anyway
For redevelopment?
on these houses?
Oh, no. How it works is, it's, how we get our tax increment before is we get 80% for economic development and 20% for housing. So when the market is very high and property taxes are high, we can get anywhere from, total of $25 million in tax increment to spend on housing and economic development. Now we don't get the $22 million. It's gone. We don't get to spend any money on anything with that. That's going to go to the other taxing, to the fire, school, and what's the other, and law enforcement.
Now, is the Lancaster Housing Authority, has it ever been an issue where they can actually become a landlord, or is that even anywhere in discussions?
I don't believe the philosophy of the city of Lancaster is to have ever had public housing. And to be a landlord is to have public housing. And it's extremely staff intensive. It's extremely expensive because you get the tenants in, you have to evict the tenants, you know where that's going to go, and then you have to fix up the unit that's been destroyed, and then you're held to a higher accountability because you're a public agency than a private citizen. So it becomes extremely expensive and very time intensive, and the city has never been really behind being the owner of property to rent it.
And I agree. I asked that question because the banks are actually starting to look at doing that.
That will have to be approved, and I don't know if it's going to, that has to be approved by Congress, and I don't know if that's going to ever get there. The banks may be thinking about it, but that's something that's a little bit, I don't know if we're going to get there.
Oh, sure.
Liz, you answered Howard's question about income, for people purchasing these homes. That's a consistent on resale and everything else, right? So those homes they have to meet that requirement
For
forever.
45 years on single-family residence and 55 years on multifamily housing.
Wow.
And it's on multifamily housing, you have a regulatory agreement that's recorded on the property, and on the housing, you have the conditions, covenants, and restrictions, also regulatory conditions, covenants, restrictions of affordability.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Liz, I also have seen some information about the possibility that the 20% set aside for low-income housing may continue. Can you give us any information about that?
SB 654, it wasn't that we'd get that tax. We're never going to get that tax. All SB 654 said is that if we had tax increment housing, the 20% set aside cash on hand, we could keep the cash on hand. But that became a big political play at the Assembly, and so at this point, if they can't get it to be in an urgency bill, it doesn't become effective till January, and that money's going to be gone because there is no separation of tax increment. It's all one now. There's no housing, there's no difference. It's just all taxes.
I see. Okay, and then for most of us who are not real familiar with this, putting a context to this I think would really help. The City of Lancaster Redevelopment Agency had some plans for the future concerning some projects. Can you give us some examples of what are not going to occur as a result of this demolishing of the Redevelopment Agency?
it makes it very difficult to incentivize businesses to come to Lancaster. That's the bulk of what will be lost. So if a business came here and installing a signal was too expensive for them, and they wanted to build a facility that had, I don't know, 100 employees or whatever, then we could pay for the signaling with economic development funds, which then reduced a cost for them. That's gone. So there's very few tools in the toolbox to incentivize any kind of business to come here. So we're just going to have to reinvent and rethink and be very creative and sit down and get a new toolbox.
So we've lost the redevelopment agency and the enterprise zone.
The enterprise zone is lost, I think, for, is it 1 year? 1 year, and then we will probably be able to do an application, maybe, I don't know, that's dependent on Governor Jerry Brown, I don't know. He's not really being very, I don't know, he's cutting his budget. And very few things are coming back to the table that he's already cut.
That's very stifling.
On the question about where the money goes, you'd mentioned schools and special districts that will be getting a portion of the funds. And this might sound like they're going to get some kind of increase, but
Not
but
really.
you said the state is going to then reduce the backfill. So,
Right.
So they could end up with less,
Well, it'll be a push.
or the same.
And the difficulty is that money that goes to the schools is only for the 7 redevelopment project areas. It's not for the entire city. That money goes, but those project areas don't exist anymore, so I'm not sure how they're going to do this. See, there's little nuances. You're not quite sure how it's going to work. But no, it's not going to really bring them any more because that's what the state was backfilling. All it does is, I guess, help Jerry try and balance his budget. But it's not very balanced.
Well, we're going to look forward to you coming back in 3 months and hopefully bring us some better news.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Antelope Valley Partners for Health regarding the services and programs they currently offer to residents in the city of Lancaster. We have Michelle Kiefer.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I just wanted to kind of run through some things that Antelope Valley Partners for Health is doing. I don't know if I see some familiar faces, so I know some people know what we do. So Antelope Valley Partners for Health was founded in 1999 through a grant from the Partnership for Public Health, and it was started as a grassroots community group. So it was basically started to identify gaps in health and social services in the Antelope Valley and either fill the gaps with other existing programs through our community organizations or create programs to fill those gaps. And we do still have a lot of deficiencies in our service areas. So that is, and our vision is to have healthy people in a healthy Antelope Valley. It has since 1999. So over the last decade, these are kind of the things that we have been doing. We've had multiple health fairs, community needs assessments, senior expos. We've done cooking classes. We had a PEP grant. We started the Healthy Kids Cook-Off, which is still going on, Women's Spring Tea. We facilitated the task force that started the Antelope Valley Community Clinic, which is now in full operations. They actually treated over 5,800 patients last month. They have a full dental, and they're in both the city of Lancaster and Palmdale with full operational clinics, so we're very proud of that success. We had the Save a Smile dental program, which has now been moved over into the clinic, which went into the schools and did exams on children and cleanings and got them to dentists when needed. We have our United We Mentor program, which is a one-on-one mentoring program. It was federally funded for 3 years, and that is still going on. And we actually started a tutoring program in partnership with Paiute Middle School, and we have 80 middle schoolers going to the cafeteria every Tuesday and Thursday right now. So that kind of exploded. We did our Strengthening Young Families programs, which was in collaboration with Valley Oasis, Mental Health America, and the hospital, and that was to serve young women that were homeless with families, and we housed them and got them some case management services to get them out of risk. And of course our Project Wellness Home that I'll go a little bit more into in a moment. We're starting a network resource training center, which will help bring training to our current community partners and other continuing education units and things like that. And then of course our Renew project that we worked with the City of Lancaster on, which was just approved by the Council of the Master Plan. So we're busy. These are our current coalitions and task forces. It's just an idea of what we're working on, and those are all community-based with our partners participating in that to identify some of those gaps that we've been talking about. And here are our partners again that kind of come to the table to all of those things. The Wellness Home Project, these are our 7 wellness homes. 6 of them are open. Linda Verde just was finished. High Desert Medical Group was a sponsor of that, and they just finished doing the decorating everything, so we'll be doing the official opening hopefully at the end of this month with that. And these are just some of the things that we're doing in the houses. The list is kind of endless, and AVPH doesn't do all of the classes here. We have a lot of our community-based partners that come in and do them. DCFS comes in and does parenting. The clinic helps with our health assessments. Infant massage, we have our case managers do, which really bonds. We've had a huge increase in breastfeeding, which helps our health all the way around. We have our Project Get Fit, which was funded by Kaiser, and that's the mayor donated 3 Xboxes, and they're doing a circuit training, and that's really fun. The kids are loving that. We're actually talking about bringing that to Paiute School because those 80 children get a little antsy after a little while, so we figured we'd bring them some fitness too. So that's just a lot of the things that we're doing. We do monitor visitation. All of my staff is trained to be monitors for visitation, so we work with DCFS on that. And it's really quite incredible because the families they used to go to McDonald's, parks, office buildings to try to reunite with their children, and now they're coming to a home-like setting. They can have snacks there, they play games, they can do floor time with their children. So it's really been quite an amazing thing to have that in the homes. And of course our community gardens, 2 of the homes have them in the backyard, which is really exciting. And then we partner with the Neighborhood Impact on some of the other communities in that. And we do work really closely with Neighborhood Impact on all of our programs. They actually started bringing their ballet up to the Paiute house because we have the garages all set up. And they bring the tutoring kids up. So they close the house because we know kids would rather play basketball than actually do homework. So the wellness program really started about 3 years ago. Dr. Tuzo with Kaiser and I started kind of a crusade after we had a meeting with Public Health, which gave us our health disparities from their key indicators. So this is Antelope Valley compared to national. This isn't even compared to Los Angeles, which is even higher in some instances. So you could see most of our rates that are really high are preventable. Heart disease, these are our top 5 disparities: heart disease, asthma, lung cancer, diabetes, obesity, and infant mortality. All of these we can prevent. If people eat healthy and exercise, heart disease will go down, obesity will go down, which will reduce our diabetes rates. Asthma and lung cancer, it's more preventable, so if kids are going to their doctors and being diagnosed and on their inhalers, we'll have less hospital visitations on that. And infant mortality, women getting to their doctors for their prenatal and doing breastfeeding and some of those things. So all of those things are very preventable, and that's what we're really trying to do. So recently we we started our wellness homes, and the city, this is kind of where they why they picked up some of these neighborhoods. And one of our newest projects that we're now working on, we were just funded by Kaiser, and the Lancaster community was designated as a Heal Zone project. So we will be starting a full assessment and then trying to do a lot of policy and changes in these specific neighborhoods, and then try to duplicate them as we have successes and do lessons learned from it. Some of our barriers, obviously, are access to healthy food, limited physical activity in schools, transportation. We do have a strong commitment from the Lancaster School District to participate in our Heal Zone, and in fact, Michelle Bowers is on our committee for that, and so we're really excited for that partnership, along with the city, and expanding the Renew project with the walkways and bikeways and equestrian paths. These are our strengths. We actually have a lot of strengths in the city of Lancaster, thanks to the city and the mayor and the staff here. They're very innovative in how we're addressing our health issues here. So these are the kind of things that we desire for our outcomes. We want better access to healthy foods, physical education programs at the schools. We're talking about doing a no rush zone in the schools, so the kids go out and play first before they come and eat lunch, because of course, they're rushing out to the playground, and what's getting thrown away is the apples and bananas and all the healthy stuff. So increase the awareness of our master plan. We really need to get the businesses involved. I'm a very strong believer that we all are at work for 8+ hours a day, and to really change the adults in this community, we have to hit them at the businesses. We get our children at the schools, hopefully, and so we really need to make changes in our adults. We need to get into the businesses somehow. And of course, I offer more fitness programs and things like that. So these are our upcoming events for AVPH. We have our Warford Walk for Wellness. It will be our 3rd year. We will be doing a Heal Zone Coalition meeting, hopefully here at City Hall, and we're hoping to do it towards the end of February. And then we will be holding a large wellness conference in August, and that is really to address the community action plans that we're doing with the Heal Zones, and how we can move forward in this. So what we need from everybody is we need people to participate in the walks and runs and bike rides. We do need lots of volunteers at the wellness homes. We need the businesses to support, implement wellness programs, and of course we need money like everybody else. So thank you, and any questions? I did give a packet to everybody, and in it we have one of our newsletters and all of the information of all of our other programs, which we have United We Mentor, infant mortality programs, things like that.
How do you go about acquiring the volunteers? I mean, is there a list that we can that's posted somewhere so that we can work
actually, our website, we have a volunteer area on our website, so you can just go onto the website and fill out a volunteer form. We've actually been getting a lot more volunteers that way. Other volunteers, we are going through the GAIN program. We just started that, and also the schools. They have a lot of kinesiology programs and things like that that we're trying to tap into right now also.
I noticed in your clinic program you were discussing, there was a dental component to that. Mm-hmm. Does that apply to senior citizens who are many times most times not covered on dental care by their Medicare?
Yes, we just actually, our dental clinic here on 10th Street, we just opened it to adults about two weeks ago, and it's on a sliding fee scale based on income and all of those things, but it's very generous, and most of our employees are starting to be like, I'll go here. Actually, the CEO just took his son for some cavities, and he's like, his out-of-pocket was more than paying full price at the clinic right now. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody's welcome. We take everybody there.
The volunteers for the wellness home that you're looking for, are you looking for volunteers that have special areas of coverage, or generalists?
General and special. I mean, we're focusing on some of the fitness programs right now, and we're really looking for fitness and nutrition. We're also looking for some nursing because we do the health assessments there. But even general, just house sitters that can sit so we can get the houses open full-time. Right now, they're staffed by my case managers that do home visits. They're there doing their paperwork is when the houses are open unless we have presenters in. So we really want to get focused, dedicated people, and that's what we're working with GAIN on right now, is really getting them into the homes.
Okay. And the information for volunteering is on the website and would help guide us?
And also mentors. We always need mentors. Besides for the wellness home, we need mentors. We have a huge waiting list for mentees.
I see.
So.
Okay.
Michelle, what's your primary source of funding then? I see you're a 501c3.
Yes. We are funded with First Five of Los Angeles, Kaiser, Weingart Foundation. We do fundraisers, and so that's pretty much right now the bulk of our funding.
But the first three that you just mentioned, are those stable, so you have, a few years out in grant funds, or does that fluctuate?
What's stable in this economy? It's pretty stable right now. We have some 5-year contracts right now, 3-year contracts. That's usually what the majority of them are. There are some new programs coming out through First Five especially. I'm sure everybody's heard that they've kind of been in flux too. But they have their Best Start programs that they're working on. Lancaster is one of the Best Start communities. And they have a Welcome Baby program and a whole bunch of different little things that will come out that we could feed into as well.
Great, thanks.
We want to thank you for coming and sharing with us all this information. I know I'm going to take a peek on your website.
Great.
See if I can help out.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a presentation from Neighborhood Impact regarding the programs and services they offer in collaboration with the City of Lancaster. We have Concepcion Harris here.
Good
Hello there.
afternoon. I'm going to talk about neighborhood impact, and I'm not quite sure just exactly how much the commissioners know about neighborhood impact, but it started in April of 2005, and so this coming April will be 7 years that we've been working in the community, and essentially we're just a collaboration of churches that want to meet the spiritual, physical, and emotional needs of the people, specifically in at-risk neighborhoods. And this was started by Chris Johnson, who is the pastor at Grace Chapel. And as he was driving by the neighborhood, which we call the Paiute area, between 3rd and 5th Street East and Avenue I, he said, I think that as a church we need to be working in that neighborhood, specifically because of the low income, the racial diversity, the high crime in that particular area. And so they started just doing a small kids club with Bible study at the school there. And then my pastor at Central Christian Church heard about it. And he said, this is something we need to be involved in as well. And so we partnered with Grace Chapel. And then we began doing different things in the neighborhood, having barbecues and doing activities with the kids and that kind of thing. In 2007, we began the partnership with the City of Lancaster, and it was when the Martin Luther King Workday was officially established as a day where we need to go out and be doing things in the community, service projects, if you will. And so on that day, then we painted Paiute Middle School, and we also put in an entire playground at Linda Verde School. And then that partnership got bigger as that fall. The one thing that we realized is that we were being able to interact with the kids and do things with the kids, but you want to be able to get the whole community involved, and we need to be to somehow reach the adults. And we knew that if you somehow are able to touch an adult, then somehow we'll be forming relationships. And so we painted 50 homes. That's what we decided to do, because of the area being so run down, we decided to paint the homes, and it was 50 that first year. We also continued painting at Paiute Middle School. We also did a dental clinic that year. We, in conjunction with the City of Lancaster, we also painted all of the numbers on the curbs, and the City of Lancaster provided the dumpsters because we also hauled tons of trash out of the neighborhood. We did this all at no charge. And when you have 1,000 people in a neighborhood, you get people's attention because they have no idea what's going on, the ones whose homes were not being painted. And so they want to know just exactly what it is that's going on. And so that began the relationships that we had with the people in the Paiute area. The other thing that we did was, or that Grace Chapel did, is they rented a home, and then they had a family that was actually doing ministry out of their home, and the kids were able to come over, and so that kind of formed the grassroots behind neighborhood impact. I want to say that it was probably 2008, and we just continued doing things with the kids, continued forming relationships with the adults. And around 2008 and 2009, the City of Lancaster approached us and said, you're doing such a great job in this neighborhood. How about taking on another neighborhood, adopting another neighborhood? And so we adopted the Trend neighborhood. And about the same time, the City of Lancaster then said, it would be great if you could have a home in each one of these neighborhoods, because we've identified a number of neighborhoods that are at risk. And so they refurbished homes in certain neighborhoods that were at risk, and then we are renting those homes from the city. And that kind of began another phase of what it is that we were able to do, because now when you have a presence in the neighborhood, now you're saying something, not just coming in from the outside. You have to have a presence in that neighborhood to really be able to let people know that you care about them and their kids. So that was another phase, and that has now, we're in 7 neighborhoods. There's 4 churches that are involved. And we're continuing to paint homes every single year, but we've also established a relationship with the schools. So we've painted, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools so far, because one of the things that we noticed in the neighborhoods was that the schools also needed a little bit of loving care, because they almost looked a little bit like the neighborhood itself, kind of getting a little bit run down as well. And so we painted the schools, and they look great. And so I think the thing that has really been great for us is the relationship with the city, the relationship with the neighbors, the community, the relationship with the schools, and the relationship also with Antelope Valley Partners for Health. Because the doctor on my team, Dr. Tuso, was the one who kind of had this idea about the wellness homes, and then now we've got the wellness homes in each one of the neighborhoods. And then we thought that let's continue to expand once we found out about the eating habits and that kind of thing. So let's have a community garden. So we started the community garden in the Trend area, and that's expanded to 2 other community gardens that Antelope Valley Partners for Health has. And we now have a sports league, and we just started it last year. We had, I want to say, 85 kids that came out for basketball. We didn't know, we had no idea how many kids would come out. Probably one, a team for each one of the homes. Then we went to football. Well, that just escalated. And now and they're just clamoring for basketball. We have no idea how many kids we're going to have, but we know we're going to have a ton of kids because they're asking us about basketball. And we're going to start, I think, the practice in March. And all of this that we're doing is because we want to impact the community. And we take a look around, we took a look around, and we noticed that, yes, the people are coming into the church, and we can take care of the people that are coming into the church. But what about the people who may not be able to come to church or don't have an interest in church? And that is our primary focus. what are we going to do with, their needs? What about these people that need food? They need a lot of other things. These kids don't have parents in the home a lot of times, so they're running up and down the street, and, the crime is going up and that kind of thing. So that is neighborhood impact in a nutshell. So I'm happy to answer questions about that.
I want to say that I was happy to be out there wielding a paintbrush. I think what you did was one of the most spectacular community efforts I've ever seen in this or any other city. Going back to the Paiute neighborhood, and that was the first really big public display of what you had been doing unsung before. And I just think what you're doing is a wonderful thing, and I wish you only have four. I say only. You have 4 churches involved. Mm-hmm. What are the other churches doing?
We're working on it. It does take money, and it takes a lot of volunteers. So you do have to be a large church to be able to take on an entire neighborhood. I would say that that's probably one of the biggest drawbacks, because all of the money that we get is strictly from donations from the people in the congregation. So.
Thank you.
Well, Concepcion, I listened to you. I'm going to go ahead and fill in one blank you left. I know you are also providing tutoring services at these impact homes. And having seen that firsthand, it's a terrific job you're doing there.
Thank you, because the kids also, they need help. And one of the things that was really difficult for us to see, that the kids they struggle with math and reading specifically. And they struggle with reading. And another partnership that we've had with that to help the kids is Pet Pals. They come in on Tuesdays, and they're therapy dogs, what they do, the people who have these dogs, they're also therapists as well. And a child would rather read to a dog because they know they're not going to be judged, especially if they're not reading well. So that's another facet that we have. And we just do so many other, it's hard to kind of put into words all the things that we do with the kids, taking them to the beach and taking them to Laker games and taking them to the movies and just doing things with them so that, and trying to teach them to be responsible citizens, trying to help them in ways that maybe there's a lack of adults in their lives that can do that with them.
If somebody wanted to be a volunteer, how do they get a hold of you or somebody else?
They can contact any one of the churches
Which
that
churches?
is involved.
Grace
It is
Central?
Grace Chapel, Central Christian Church, Antelope Valley Christian Center, and Livingstone Cathedral,
Okay,
Henry Hearn's Church.
right,
So,
okay.
Again, could you repeat those again? I apologize. The
sorry?
churches. That was Antelope Valley Christian Center,
Antelope
Grace.
Valley Christian Center, Livingstone Cathedral, Grace Chapel, and Central Christian Church. And I'm sure an immediate need would be, we could use some referees, probably for the basketball games. So we could use some referees, anyone who's willing to do that. Maybe help with the coaching.
What about like basketballs or any of the
We could
equipment?
use the equipment as well
Okay.
as T-shirts
Okay,
for the kids. We each have a specific color, and
Right.
we had 35 cheerleaders with the football games, and so we don't know how many cheerleaders we'll have, but yeah,
okay.
they were the girls want to get
Sure.
involved too, so
Sure.
I want to make sure we can get them involved. I think the last project that we just finished was the Martin Luther King Workday was helping to refurbish the inside of Antelope Valley High School, the gym, and cleaning all of the 30 bathrooms that they have at the school. And we're currently painting the music room. So,
Well, Concepcion, it sounds like you've really got quite a few things going on simultaneously that sound terrific for this community. We want to thank you for coming here.
Well, and thank you to the City of Lancaster and Antelope Valley Partners for Health for their contribution, because without that, the partnership, truly, we would not be able to do as many things as we've been able to do. So.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. The last item on the agenda is staff will provide information for neighborhoods that can be the focus of the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission efforts in collaboration with the Lancaster Sheriff's Department and community-based organizations. And we have Patty here to give us the presentation.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. How's everybody doing? Good. Great. We met with the appropriate staff, including the Public Safety Manager, Housing and Revitalization Director, and also staff members from Public Works and the Planning Department to determine the two areas in the city that are in most need of our help at this time. And although we acknowledge that there's a lot of different areas throughout the city that could definitely benefit from services and resources, we'd like to draw your attention to two particular areas. These neighborhoods were established in the city vision plans, but unlike other areas such as Mariposa and Desert View and Trend, no work has been started in Joshua or El Dorado, and these are the where they're bordered. So it's Division to Challenger, J to K, and that's Joshua, and El Dorado's Division to Challenger and Lancaster Boulevard to J. I wanted to show you this map, which kind of gives you a lot of detail about what's going on in these areas. Let me just take this little red marker. El Dorado is, like I said, Lancaster Boulevard down to Avenue J and then over to Challenger Way. And as you can see, there's a lot of different types of crimes going on in this area. There's a lot of residential burglary, a lot of assaulted and aggravated assault, and a lot of petty theft type of things going on. This area down here, Division to Challenger Way and Avenue J going south to Avenue K, there's the same, a lot of different crimes going on, in particular a lot of residential burglary and theft, but obviously it's stretched over a much larger area. Just to give you some more information about the area as a whole, this actually is 1.5 square miles of the city, and there's about 6,000 residents that live in this total combined area. These areas here to the left where I'm pointing at, those are multifamily units, and that's in the El Dorado area. All this down here, all more multifamily units. And then there's also some down here on the right in the Joshua area, but there's a large percentage of them in El Dorado. Let me give you some neighborhood demographics so that you understand kind of the neighborhoods that we're dealing with and the residents that we're looking at. In terms of population, these areas are pretty similar. However, as you can see, the population in Joshua is just a little over 2,200, where Joshua's a little over 3,700, which is interesting because, like I said, El Dorado's a lot smaller than Joshua, but there's a higher concentration of residents there. What we believe that is attributed to is the presence of multifamily units and a lot of people concentrated in just a smaller geographical area. As far as the population and diversity, they're both pretty close as far as their population. There is no one group that really predominates. It's pretty diverse just in general. Average age in both areas is 33, and something that we found interesting, education is always indicator of a lot of things in the neighborhood. What we found is that about 50% of both of these areas have a population that has high school degree, has high school certificate or GED equivalent, or no high school diploma. Advanced degrees are very minimal, and we just found this to be the kind of the highest percentage. Something interesting about also employment also has a big impact in neighborhoods, and very high numbers of unemployment in both areas, 37% in Joshua and 24% in El Dorado. Those are obviously both higher than the state average, which is 11%, and the city average, which is 17%. So there's a lot of people that are unemployed in these areas. A little bit more about the neighborhood demographics. As you all know, you're probably all homeowners. there is a difference between people who have a vested interest in keeping their neighborhoods clean and, wanting to have their house maintained and properties looking good. It helps with property value. And one of the things we found is that in Joshua, there is 70% of people who are owner-occupied, who live in owner-occupied houses. In El Dorado, it's a little different. It's about 50% residents that are currently renting. So it's a little bit different there. Number of households, 1,900 in Joshua and 1,100 in El Dorado. Something else that's pretty indicative of a neighborhood is how children live and how families live. Both of these both of these neighborhoods currently have a CARES after-school program, and in order to qualify for that after-school program, there has to be at least 50% of children who qualify for free or reduced lunch. Both of these elementary schools in these areas qualify, and usually what we found is it's actually a lot more than the 50%. So there's definitely a lot of impoverished children in this area, and a high need for extra support. The per capita income in Joshua is $16,000 and $14,000 in El Dorado, and that's a lot lower than the Los Angeles County average, which is $21,000. So now we know a little bit about the demographics and the type of people that live in these neighborhoods. Let's talk about neighborhood services and what resources are available. Neighborhood impact homes. We do currently have a neighborhood impact home in both Joshua and El Dorado, but there are they're not currently operating. So they're there, but we don't have the churches that have already started to operate those. El Dorado is finalizing their church. We're looking to possibly work with First Assembly of God in providing services out of that neighborhood impact home. As far as wellness homes, we do have a wellness home in the Joshua neighborhood and nothing in El Dorado at this point. There are a lot of churches in both areas, and this is really important. One of the things that we found is obviously, as you just heard from Concepcion's presentation, the churches make a big difference. They have a lot of people who are really vested in making improvements in neighborhoods, and so both areas have a lot of a pretty big church presence, especially the Church of Latter-day Saints in El Dorado. That's a pretty large organization with over 300 members. As far as the schools go, they both have their own elementary school, which I mentioned. They share a middle school and a high school. We've met with our public safety office, as I mentioned, and they're kind of going through they're reorganizing all their information, but what we could tell is that there are no neighborhood watch groups at this point in Joshua, and there is one group in El Dorado. It's the Gingham Avenue group, and they're actually it's a pretty strong group. They meet on a consistent basis. They have a pretty good core of people who meet and who have actually made some pretty positive impacts in their neighborhood. So based on all this information that we found and the information that we got from different departments and what we're all doing throughout the city, it was determined that staff determined that El Dorado was probably the best place for us to focus our efforts in, and there's a few reasons that we selected this area. Number one, lack of resources. A lot of the different areas that we brought up when we talked about different areas we could focus on have already received some type of service. So a place like Mariposa, we've done a lot of different projects, and Paiute, you obviously just heard about. We've done projects in the Trend Track, and those have all been very successful. Nothing has happened in El Dorado. It's a pretty older community. I think it was built around probably the 1960s or so, and they haven't really had any support since then. And so it's an ideal place for us to go in and take a model kind of like the Paiute area and build something really positive and turn this neighborhood around. Oh, excuse me. Street grid system. We actually drove around both neighborhoods to kind of get a feel for what they were like and how easy they were to navigate. Something that we found is El Dorado is a lot easier to navigate. I'm not sure if you guys have driven through the Joshua neighborhood, but the streets are they meander in kind of a strange way. They're very large, they're very spread out. Obviously, from the map I showed, it's a much bigger area, and so from a law enforcement standpoint, it would be a lot more difficult for us to, it's obviously doable, but it would be harder to create a strategy around such a big area, where in a place like El Dorado, because of the way that it's set up and because it's a lot smaller, we could have a lot more wins and could see an impact in a much quicker way. So that was another thing that we saw as a plus. There haven't been any projects that have specifically targeted El Dorado. I think Concepcion mentioned that I believe like 2 years ago, through the MLK Day of Service, there was a huge project in Joshua where they did a big cleanup. They picked up a lot of the trash that was in neighbors' yards and in the front yards, and it really helped to improve that neighborhood. Nothing's been done in El Dorado, and so this is a wonderful opportunity for us to go into that neighborhood and get neighbors involved in cleaning, in those cleanup type of efforts. There is a high rate of robbery on the businesses along Avenue J and Division. I'm not sure if you guys have been to the Alero gas station on the corner of Division and J, but it's a pretty scary place. I know a lot of you are business owners, and one of the most important things as a business owner is that your customers feel safe and that they feel that they can actually shop in peace. So this is a really good opportunity for us to get our Sheriff's Department involved and really have us reach out to those business owners and create that process where we can start improving those neighborhoods and really getting that element out of there. Same thing with the residential burglaries and theft. We have operations groups that are dedicated specifically to burglary suppression. And so, if we were to focus in El Dorado, we can go into those multifamily units where we see a lot of the burglary happening and get them to start cleaning that out, getting the element to know that they're not accepted, they're not wanted, and they need to go somewhere else. The relationship with El Dorado Elementary is really important to point out. We already have a relationship with them through the CARES program. We have a good relationship with the school district. What we found is through our town hall programs, those are mini communities where we already have, actually a built-in community, because you already have the parents, you have the kids. The kids will drive their parents to come out to a town hall and to hear about what the city's doing, to get them to give us some feedback as to how we can improve the neighborhoods, and to get them involved in being a part of that also. So that relationship is really important in our efforts. The church presence, also very important. A church like the Latter-day Saints with 300 members could obviously have a huge impact if we were to host a community cleanup, and they're in this neighborhood. So that's a perfect relationship or cooperation there. And then finally, the Gingham Avenue Neighborhood Watch Group. Because this group has been so successful, they can serve as kind of a model for other neighborhood watch groups or other people that are interested in creating a group. They could definitely be our kind of grassroots people that work with other neighbors and get them to understand why it's so important to create neighborhood watch groups and why these are, these can really be a benefit to the smaller communities. With that, that's our recommendation, and obviously I can answer any questions you might have about either area.
Patty, if I understand this, you're looking for the commission to second the recommendation staff is bringing to us. In doing that, you're looking at El Dorado being the first neighborhood, followed by other neighborhoods at a later point in time?
Right, and actually what we've talked about is starting with a neighborhood like El Dorado, and then because they're right adjacent to each other, we could start with El Dorado and then move into Joshua after our efforts in El Dorado have given us some success.
Okay. And kind of on that account, in order to determine whether there's been improvement, what are the standards that are going to be measured here so that everyone knows up front what it is we're trying to accomplish as part of this process?
Well, I think what we can do is, before we start a process like this, we would want to meet with our Sheriff's Department and with Public Safety to come up with a couple of things that we're looking to accomplish, and, getting some feedback from the neighbors and kind of getting them to buy into the project, and then at the end, after we figure out what our goals are and after we've done some work in the area, go back and see whether or not those goals have been met.
I see. Okay. And will those goals come before the commission?
They probably.
Well, I can say this. Okay, obviously you can see there's a certain level of issues first and foremost being the criminal issue.
Right.
We want to raise the standard of quality of living in any neighborhood. Obviously, people need to not be afraid to come outside.
Right.
Okay, and there's some specific issues as relates to that part of the community and different hours of the day. So based on what we're seeing already with calls for service, okay, number of arrests, things that impact some of our decisions here.
I see.
We're not going to have a public discussion about what the plan of attack is,
Oh, no,
how
no,
we put that together, but we're certainly, the first and foremost is if we drive through, does the neighborhood look better, okay, or do we have people participating in programs that we want to bring there? And then establishing that from that point. So, the first part, we're really good at just taking control of an area and removing that initial element, but it's maintaining the presence there afterwards.
Nice.
That is the challenge. So as we're looking at this, and then part of the discussion we're having is implementing some other strategies. And that is certainly something we want to have the commission involved in developing how we base our results. Okay, what are the strategies we want to implement? What are the needs in the neighborhood? And then how do we determine if we're impacting those things in a positive way?
Right.
Part of that is talking to the people that live in the community there. Okay, so involving like our core program and our community-based model with Lancaster, especially in this area we have a high concentration of multifamily and super high concentration. So anytime you'd like to come drive around with me, it's especially adjacent to Lancaster Boulevard, it's pretty interesting how we develop that area. And then as you go farther south, it turns more into single-family homes going out to Avenue J. But we have some things that are working well for us in that area, as well as with the whole changeover at Antelope Valley High School and some of the culture of that school and what's being changed there by the high school district and the schools in the area. And that would obviously play into that too as well. So as we go in there and we talk to the community after we initially clean out the criminal element, is what do they see, what do they perceive would be successful for them in their neighborhood? What are the needs? What services need to be provided? And then, we have some great developed partnerships already with Neighborhood Impact and AV Partners for Health and things out there that I think we're in a great position now, and to revisit some of our other neighborhoods that we did have a presence now to come with a refocus as we expand from this point.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things that catches my attention going over all that information is the El Dorado area. You have a Little League, but you don't really have a park in that area. You have the park on Avenue I and 10th Street East, but there isn't a park in the El Dorado area aside from El Dorado Little League.
No, there's a shared park with, it's actually at the elementary school. It's El Dorado Park. It's very small.
When I say park.
Park, you mean like an actual park?
Right, that's the Little League I'm talking. I don't really think of that as a park. I think more of that as a Little League. It is, you're right, it does have a small park shared with the school. But, that's one of the things that comes to my mind is there isn't, a nicer or larger park in that area.
It's a good point. We talked about that too. That's why the schools work out well as far as when we do go into those neighborhoods, because it is already a built-in community into the schools. And a lot of people evaluate, what's the first thing people ask about when they want to move to a new area or they're considering an area as the schools. And so it becomes kind of a commonplace for us to have that outreach. The reality of it is we have a strategy on how we implement this, and it is not reinventing the wheel. Okay, it's just bringing things that have shown success in the past and things that haven't been so successful, getting rid of those strategies, getting outside the box and implementing new ideas on how to maintain that. And again, the focus being maintaining that presence thereafter. Okay, because that's where the real impact. We've had that. We have issues in other neighborhoods throughout the community that we've put a large amount of resources and presence into, and we need to really evaluate how we're maintaining that presence there.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the other component of this, we've talked in the past about the Unite program. And by selecting this neighborhood in El Dorado, one of the things we want to do with the Unite is actually focus that program on this neighborhood so we can engage the residents in that area as we start to develop the resources and get them involved with Neighborhood Impact and AV Partners for Health and the other agencies that can provide services. We also want to engage them to do something themselves within their own neighborhood through the Unite program and start to get them involved in uplifting their own neighborhood. So along with what we're saying here, too, is we want to focus the Unite program for 2012 in the El Dorado area and really get the residents in that neighborhood to start looking at things and how they themselves can improve the area with the other partners that we want to bring in there.
If I may, I think the components in the El Dorado area are perfect. I was actually one of the rec leaders when the CARES program started at El Dorado 11, 12 years ago. And one thing I remember about that school in particular, and obviously things have probably changed in the last 12 years, was that the parents were actually incredibly involved. And I saw in the other schools, I worked at like 7 of them during this period. El Dorado, for me, that some of the kids just really stuck out in my mind is really because the parents cared about what they were doing, and I don't know if that's still there 12 years down the road. But I think if you go after the CARES program, I mean that you do have the Church Latter-day Saints is there. I mean if you get those groups behind you, I really think that this is can kind of start the snowball, so to speak, down the mountain to move it into Joshua, which is also another area. And when you look at, I'm sure Howard understands these neighborhoods very well from a landlord's perspective. I think that I agree El Dorado would be a great choice.
Comments of commissioners?
If possible, I would like to get a copy of your presentation. I found it very interesting with the numbers. I'd like to look at that closer.
Are you looking for a motion?
Well, actually, I believe we already had one from Commissioner Derryberry.
Oh, did we? I'm sorry.
So I'm actually looking for a second.
Well, I'll second it then.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Derryberry and a second by Commissioner Grooms. Please vote. Oops. Oh, that's right.
We can't just do a show of hands.
Okay, the motion carries 6-0. Okay, the last item is the public business from the floor on non-agendized items. We request any person who would like to address the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission on non-agendized matters to complete a speaker card, and you will find speaker cards on the back table of the council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill the cards out completely and print as clearly as possible so that, if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you either by phone or mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice there are 3 lights. The green light comes on when you begin, the yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Following this procedure will allow for a smooth and timely process for the commission meeting, and we appreciate your cooperation. State law prohibits the Lancaster Neighborhood Vitalization Commission from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to staff. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do. Lindy Williams.
Hi, thank you guys for your time. Just wanted to say there's a lot of good things that are being done. I like Miss Harris, I think, Concepcion. If anything, I live in one of the areas that are considered blight, so on and so forth. Over time, what I see, it gets a little discouraging when the powers that be who don't live in my area are calling it blight and implying as if we don't care. There are people who do live in my area who don't care. Most of us are really, really broke, and if we have a choice between sneakers or paint, we're probably going to get sneakers because that's our vacation. I don't think that way, but in general, that's our vacation. Other people save their money, take a trip, go to Catalina, take off for the weekend. We buy another pair of sneakers or something that makes us feel good. I would hope that as people are putting things together, you actually incorporate the people who do, like Lee was saying, live in the area. I'm hoping that we can use things that people have to attend, such as those of us who don't have cars have to catch a bus. Put the information in the bus. Not all of us have the TV. Not all of us have the internet. Channel 3, Time Warner is one of the most expensive cable companies you can have out here. We bounce from Dish to that, to this, to so on and so forth, just so we can continue to almost have a little bit of what would be considered considered normal. Think outside the box. People, unfortunately, I tried to get a grocery store Unite program. They didn't think it. They thought a Dollar Tree was better, but whatever. So now we're buying hot Cheetos. They say we're fat, but they won't give us a grocery store. They say we're fat, but we couldn't use the Whit Carter Park, and they spent tons of money on decomposed granite. We need bikes. There was a program, something through the prison. Lieutenant Down, who left us, had some information where we can get bikes and make us work for it. Do something out of the ordinary. If I'm up here and I'm singing Wayne Newton, and I should be singing Little Wayne, then nobody knows what I'm talking about. I can't come in your house and tell you, you know what, I don't like where you put your shoes, put them in the closet. You say, hey, it doesn't bother me. But what I do need is I need more socks. No, I don't like your shoes. So think outside the box. Please put the information up in the liquor stores, the cigarette stores, all the places where maybe we should not be, but we are. We're there because our kids really are getting hot Cheetos and a Dr. Pepper because we have no grocery store, or if we do, they're too little and it's too far for them to get there. We can't steal the carts anymore now because they're all locked down. So we really have a choice of hot Cheetos and Twinkies. So thank you guys for your time and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Last item is Commissioner comments. I'd like to advise if commissioners have an item they'd like to see on the agenda to continue to forward those items to me, and I'll see that I'm working with Patty on the formal agenda each month. Any comments? Okay, then with that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 20 minutes to 6.